Persona 4 Revival is a reveal that, rightfully so, got many fans either excited or skeptical, with some people, including myself, feeling like it's a super unnecessary remake. But whether we like it or not, it's better to accept the truth that it's happening than live in denial it's not. And to assume that Atlus is not working on Persona 6 would be stupid, as games these days take more than half a decade to make, if not an entire decade. It's obvious these quick-to-make remakes, re-releases, and spin-offs are a business necessity to keep Atlus going, and while I'm not a fan of Persona 4 being remade, as I think Persona 4 Golden is a perfectly fine game that can be enjoyed to modern-day standards, that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvements. So that's what this video is about. Improvements I would love to see added, changed, or reworked, or expanded upon. Of course, there's going to be some obvious changes that we know will happen, mostly quality of life improvements like adding the word unregistered next to the personas we have infused, telling us what social link is available in each location and who can be ranked up without having to talk to everyone, the ability to pass turns after getting a one more, turning light and dark attacks into attacking skills and not just insta-kills, and having an online summary of what class answer was picked the most so you don't always have to look up the answers on your phone. But what more can a remake of Persona 4 add to make it the definitive way of playing this timeless game? And yes, I know Day 1 DLCs is going to be a thing, but don't give Atlus ideas. Well, let's dive into my list of additions and improvements that I think Persona 4 Revival needs to be the best game it can be. Bear in mind, I haven't done a full playthrough of the original Persona 4 yet, despite knowing some of its differences from the Golden version, so I may be drawing too many comparisons to the Golden version without realizing it. With all that said, here's my list of the things Persona 4 Revival needs to be the best game it can be. Voiced social links. One of the best additions to Persona 3 Reload social links was not just adding voice acted to the social links, but making every rank of the social link voice acted. In Persona 4, there were a few lines that would get voiced, but not entirely. And in Persona 5, both original and royal, only ranks 1 and 10 would be voiced. This is obviously because getting the voice actors to voice all of these lines would be both time consuming, but also requires paying the actors more than they are probably willing to. But with having every rank voice, it helps breathe life into these characters that you're encouraged to hang out with. So I hope that when Revival does get released, all social links will have every ranked with voice acting to make the interactions more engaging. A hard difficulty that is not fake. Now, I think Persona 4 Golden has an almost solid difficulty setting. Very easy for players who just want to play for story, allowing them to be revived mid-battle and earn more EXP and money as they breeze through the entire game. Easy, where you do the most amount of damage and enemies do less damage. Normal, where it's a balance of damage given and taketh. And hard, where you do less damage and the enemies do more damage. In my opinion, the first 4 difficulties are great difficulties to have, and the ability to change the difficulty mid-playthrough should be accessible. However, there is one thing I do dislike about the difficulty setting in Golden, and that's very hard difficulty. In truth, it's the same difficulty setting as hard, only you don't restart on a floor if you die, and you earn less EXP and money after winning a battle. I personally despise these difficulty settings because it doesn't make the game harder, it just makes the game needlessly grindy. And before you say that it makes it harder to complete a dungeon in one go, you can collect SP restoratives from chests, select the wand cards to gain SP back, or use the fox as early as the second dungeon. There's nothing holding you back from leveling up and completing a dungeon in one go, even with the first dungeon. If Atlus is going to implement a very hard or merciless difficulty setting, it should be a setting that makes the player do less damage, take more damage, have a higher chance of being afflicted with ailments, and a lower chance of inflicting ailments. Otherwise, the EXP and money earned should be the same as every other difficulty setting. The only exception where you should earn a different amount of EXP and money should be on very easy, or safety difficulty as it can be called, where it allows the players to earn more because they're just playing for the story. Even if you're someone who prefers a challenge, I do believe it's important to have a difficulty like very easy that makes it accessible for those who don't want to deal with the stress of battles. And while I'm all for a harder difficulty, disallowing retries on a dungeon floor is fine, but having the player earn less EXP and money is just way too cheap and, in my opinion, completely unacceptable as a difficulty setting. The only reason we should be doing more grinding is to get past a hard boss fight, not because we're playing on a setting that has us earn less. Once you know hard and very hard are literally the same difficulty, you'd only want to play Golden on hard difficulty. Well, here's hoping that Atlus can implement a proper harder difficulty setting and not something fake like Persona 5's Merciless difficulty or Persona 4 Golden's very hard difficulty. Improve or remove Marie's story arc. Now, Marie is a very polarizing character among Persona fans. She's a character who was not in the original version of the game, but was added in Golden as a social link you had to max out to get an optional dungeon in the third semester. Some love her and enjoy her story arc, while some don't like her character, social link, and feel that the overall arc and dungeon in the third semester is the weakest point in the entire game. Personally, I think she is overhated. The dungeon itself, while way too easy, does offer a unique change of pace that challenges you in a way that previous dungeons didn't before. And yeah, I can agree that her story arc is probably one of the weakest in the game. Maybe next to the story arc of the 4th dungeon, but at least the Void Quest arc connects to the murder mystery case you were solving. But I think Marie does offer a unique story that fits Persona 4's main theme, and has a great message of, no matter how bad the truth may be, it is possible to compromise and continue to make happy memories, fitting into the theme that the side of you that you may want to suppress may be horrifying, but it's only a part of who you are. With that said, I do believe it is a story arc that Atlus should either remove or improve. Remove because not much would be lost if you did remove her, but I have a strong feeling that Atlus will not want to do that and will want to keep her to make Revival the definitive way of playing Persona 4. And if they do keep Marie in, I think a few changes should be necessary. Maybe during the main character's days off, he could spend time with Marie outside of her social link, making her more important to the story. Maybe he can have dreams of her that connects to the Yamatsu Harasaka dungeon he dreams of at the start of the game, but the player is offered no context other than, maybe if I spend time with her, I could find out the truth that I'm not seeing for myself or something. And her first rank should probably be an automatic rank during the first chapter, letting the players know that she exists as an optional social link. But I think what made a character like Dr. Maruki work as a great confidant is that even if you don't like his story arc or had no idea that maxing him out was required for an optional dungeon, Maruki had the perks of giving the player more SP and a free snack, on top of useful passives for the protagonist, and the game would remind you throughout to finish his social link before November, or as soon as before the deadline of the 6th Palace, as the game makes it clear that he'll be gone for good. I think Marie's social link should offer something similar, encouragement to max her out before completing the 7th dungeon, and useful perks to the player to encourage them to max her out. Like, maybe a useful passive to sometimes invigorate the protagonist's SP if he's too low, or increase the amount of EXP earned for backup members with every rank so the backup party can be useful while reducing the amount of time grinded needed for whatever boss fight you need them for. You know, something that can encourage the players to keep spending time with her so they have a good chance of maxing her social link out before completing the 7th dungeon. But even if it's not the usefulness of her social link that's the problem, I have a feeling that most hate Marie because of her goth girl personality. The way she's always so passive and disrespectful to the player might make her such a turnoff for many, and I doubt they can remove this trait without making her a different character entirely. Honestly, I think we just need more of her, but only if it connects to the overall story and tugs at some heartstrings of her being unable to find out the truth about herself, and maybe rewrite her social link so it's more about you spending time with her and less about your party members spending time with her. Give the player more of a reason to care for her more while encouraging the player to spend time with her. While I doubt they can improve her to make her just as interesting as Dr. Maruki or Kasumi, I do believe improvements are possible. Better dungeon design. This is a common complaint that I see a lot of people make, that Persona 4's dungeons, while all unique to the character it represents, do unfortunately feel repetitive over time and lack variety. Sure, each dungeon has a gimmick on 1 or 2 fixed floors to make them unique, but I can see why some people are turned off by the design. Persona 3's Tartarus arguably has a better design because it leaves the player at a constant unease while encouraging exploration for chests and multiple choice of, should I go to the next floor now, or should I explore more with the risk of getting an accidental game over? Or should I just head back to the entrance? And in Persona 3 Reload, while the uneasiness is arguably toned down, Atlas did make grinding less repetitive by having more variety to the shovel time mechanic and giving optional doors where you can fight optional boss fights for some useful loot. Plus, each block had a unique layout that made each one feel different from the rest without making it feel like a fresh coat of paint. I think when it comes to remaking Persona 4's dungeons, they should have something between Reload's Tartarus and Persona 5's Palaces without it feeling like one or the other. I think there should be some randomly generated floors so the game is less repetitive on repeated playthroughs, but there should be some fixed floors with puzzles you have to solve to progress, similar to the Palaces in Persona 5. And those puzzles could be related to each of the victims' dilemmas of truth that they suppress or the lie that the people believe about them. Maybe give each dungeon a unique gimmick, like maybe you have to jump over a tub of hot water in the steamy bathhouse, which causes HP loss, or maybe do some platforming in the Void Quest as if you're doing an old NES platforming game. Be creative with each dungeon without making them feel samey. There's definitely improvements to be made, and I can only hope it's not just a repaint of Reload's Tartarus. Better build up to Iza E. Now, for those who have finished Persona 4 for the first time recently, there's a good chance that you may have missed out on an optional dungeon in the game. And no, not Marie's dungeon in the 3rd semester, but Yamatsu Harasaka on the day prior to the main character leaving. To get this ending, you spend Yu's last day talking to his maxed out social links, and when the game prompts you to head home, most of you probably picked yes, not realizing you're supposed to say no and head to the Judas food court in order to access the true final dungeon. To avoid spoilers, this ending pretty much answers the questions of how you and 2 other characters in the game were able to enter the TV world without having to face their shadows like your companions did. Now, this true final dungeon is not a bad way of ending the game. It fits the theme of truth and how elusive it can be, and it answers what you may have thought were plot holes. And while people praise this dungeon for being so elusive, personally, I think it's bad game design. While yes, there are seeds of this route existing, it's only at the beginning of the game when players have long forgotten about it after over 100 hours of playtime. No player in their right mind would think that there's more to the game unless they're aware of it beforehand. Most would think that there's nothing left to solve, since a certain boss fight in the 7th dungeon seemed like the true antagonist of everything to do with the fog in the TV world. No player is gonna wonder if there's more to the game if they've solved everything already. And yes, I get that the true ending route fits to the themes of Persona 4, that the truth is elusive, and sometimes what we think is the truth is not actually the truth at all. Thematically, it fits, but this is a video game. Just because I get why it's elusive does not mean it's good game design. Persona 3's endings work because it's all about accepting death as the inevitable. Not accepting it leads to a bad ending. Persona 5 is about sticking to your own path and not letting someone else dictate your life for you. Accepting an option to endure than to fight for your rights led to at least 3 different bad endings. But in Persona 4, the true ending and an entire dungeon is locked behind a random yes or a no option, with no hints of, maybe there's more that I'm missing out on. No player would have gotten this on their first playthrough unless they knew about it beforehand, wanted to screw around in Inaba for no reason, or they just looked up why they couldn't get rank 10 with the Hunger social link, which was not a social link in the original version, and getting max rank with the Hunger social link just happens to be behind this no option that just happens to lead to another dungeon. For me, I got it on my first playthrough because of the latter, not because I thought that there was more unanswered questions. And if you kept no backup saves, saved to clear data, only to find out that there was more to the game later on, it feels like a slap in the face and a disrespect to the player's time in what is an extremely long game to beat. I know this ending route has its fans, and while I'm not dismissing the final dungeon and the true final boss fight as a great way of ending the game, I will criticize it for bad game design because that's what it is. If they were to implement this true ending route into Revival, it should have more seeds making the player think that there's still more to solve. This could be given to the player by having you dream of Yumatsu Harasaka between every other chapter of the game, similar to how Morgana kept getting nightmares of who he truly is, or maybe express doubt that there's something still left to do, making the player have to choose yes twice after talking to their maxed out social links on the final day. I'm not saying it should be obvious, but it should not be this evasive. The idea of them implementing evasive truth is very possible to add, because arguably one of the best moments of the game is when you first could get a bad ending if you choose to believe a lie that you thought was the truth. And this choice between the 6th and 7th dungeon was far better written because there was evidence of doubt that you were going down the wrong path without making it too obvious. I am all for this true ending route, even if it makes the game feel anticlimactic. It just needs more seeds that it exists instead of making the player think it's over, only to watch a challenge run later to find out that there's actually more that they missed out on. I don't know, this choice personally bothers me. If it doesn't bother you, I can only wonder how you can like such bad game design. Improve the less important social links. In Persona 3, the only two advantages of doing social links is to gain bonus EXP when fusing a persona of a specific arcana, and fusing an ultimate persona in late game when you max that social link out. In Persona 4, it has the same structure, except more than half of the social links in the game provide additional benefits. Marie offers an extra dungeon if you max her out. The party members offer bonus skills and passives to make them more reliable in battle, and can awaken to their second persona when you max them out. The sports club social link raises your diligence, while the cultural clubs raises your expression. The tutor job gives you money and expression, the hospital janitor job gives you money and points and courage, the fox provides a discount for SP recovery in the TV world the more you rank her up, and while Margaret provides no additional benefits, at least fulfilling her requests at each rank doesn't advance time and encourages you to do persona fusions. However, there's 6 social links who provide absolutely no benefits and are the equivalent of Persona 3 social links, so no skills earned and no social stats to increase. I'm sure most people will raise Nanako, Dojima, and Adachi social links due to the fact that they are available at night, and a lot of players are emotionally invested in these characters. Now, whether or not you max them out before November is another question, but not an important one. However, I feel people probably skip out on the old lady, I, and Saki's brother due to the fact that bonding with them isn't as useful as the other daytime social links. And it's a shame because I and Saki's brother are both really great stories for a social link, and this is where I think the social links need balancing. For one, it's extremely hard to max out every social link in the game, even if you're playing efficiently. So I think if the less important social links were to stand out more, I think they should provide at least some sort of benefit to the player. One example would be how Persona 5 does the non-party member social links. Most non-party members' social links provide social stats. What if I increased your expression during the first half of her social link, then understanding when you get to her second half? What if Saki's brother increased nothing but understanding? Though, honestly, the more I look at these social links, the more the understanding social stats seems to be the one that'd be very likely to rank up. Maybe they could add other benefits, like how Persona 5 offers passive perks at every rank. I don't know, but I think the reason why some of these social links get left behind is due to the lack of time in the game to bond with them, and the player being emotionally invested in their party members more and knowing that they can get useful skills out of bonding with them. In fact, why would they prioritize Marie if they don't know that she unlocks an extra dungeon later in the game? Maybe you can give her the bonus EXP perk that I was mentioning earlier to backup members to make her more useful, or maybe her social link could deepen the bonds of your party member social links as well who just happen to be in that rank of her story. If anything, this can help make Marie feel more important, as her being around helps you realize the importance of making memories with your friends, which is kind of the whole point of her story arc. Now, out of all the social links I mentioned, chances are you may have noticed that I neglected to mention one. Can you guess who? It's none other than the mother social link at the daycare center. Admit it, most of you forget that this social link is even in this game, and consider that this social link comes with the benefits of increasing your understanding and giving you money. Why is she forgotten? I think it's due to the fact that you can only bond with her on Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and only when it's not raining. Personally, this schedule always bugs me because I'd rather spend time with my other daytime social links than her. And because she's not an NPC on the map, I often forget about her social link being a social link I can bond with. Honestly, I think the daycare part-time job should be available during all school days. Having this social link be unavailable during Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays makes no sense at all, and I think it's why this social link is often forgotten. So in the end, I think if they were to balance these social links out, they should make the daycare job available every day except for Sundays, have the less beneficial social links provide additional benefits so they are just as useful to the player as other social links, give players more of a reason to bond with Marie by having her give the player a useful passive, and the other thing I think they should change is to make some social links available during rainy days, or when their next rank takes place indoors. I mean, if the next rank with Yukiko is me going shopping with her or eating Chinese food with Saki's brother in a restaurant, why not bond with them during a rainy day? I can understand a rainy day being a restriction for some ranks or even an entire social link, but why prevent me from doing a social link rank that takes place indoors? I don't know, what do you guys think? How could they improve the social links in Persona 4? Am I the only one that feels they are unbalanced, or do I bring up a good point? Post your thoughts in the comments below. Please, for the love of God, Atlas, do not have the party members use Showtime or Theurgy. Definitely one of the most overpowered mechanics of Royal and Reload is the Showtimes and Theurgy attacks. Showtimes are just overpowered almighty moves, and Theurgy, while requiring some strategy on how to fill the gauges up, are ridiculously overpowered. I feel like these features are just added so Atlas could show off how stylized these characters could be, or just to make the trailers look more awesome than they actually are. I honestly feel like this is a super unnecessary addition for Persona 4 Revival. Sure, they could add something similar to the follow-up attacks, or attacks after an all-out attack, where two of your party members can do a duo attack on the enemies, but I feel like if you're gonna show off, don't make it piss easy for us, Atlas. Allow your gamers to be challenged. But regardless of what I say, I know they're gonna add this anyway. Improve or remove bike trips. This is a golden feature that unlocks after a beach trip in late August. The use of this feature is to either get a party member to remember forgotten skills, or learn a new skill that you can only get through bike riding, and each party member has 5 skills exclusive to them. The obvious detriment with doing this is that this activity can take time away from bonding with your social links, so if you're aiming to max out all social links, you want to avoid using this feature. And even if you take advantage of it, unless you're aiming for certain skills like Naoto's Angelic Grace or Yukiko's Mind Charge ability, both of which were extremely useful in my Persona 4 Golden Damageless run, by the way, check that out, you can definitely beat this game without this feature. So in my opinion, they should either remove this feature and have all skills learned through leveling up only, or improve upon it. Since the obvious detriment is losing precious daytime slots spending time with social links, maybe you can ask any of your available party members to go bike riding almost any day you want, instead of having to wait for them to be available during a specific set day. And maybe by going on bike rides, this not only gives them a new skill, but also deepens your bond with their social link, essentially killing 2 birds with 1 stone if you're unable to rank up with their next interaction. This obviously means that Teddie would be the biggest detriment since he's an automatic social link, unless Revival decides to make him an optional social link somehow, but at least the option is there to fit the player's playstyle. Personally, it's a feature that I completely avoid in a normal run of this game, as social links take top priority for me. But unless bike riding can be used to deepen your bonds with your party members, I see no reason to ever touch this game mechanic unless it's a challenge run. And I guess the same thing can be said with the movie theater trips. While it's useful for gaining a party member an extra level and raising 3 stats on their persona, maybe this should deepen their social link too. Technically it doesn't golden, but only if they were highly anticipating that movie. But I think their bond should deepen regardless of what movie you take them to watch. It's just, you deepen it even more if they were highly anticipating that movie. Obviously, the point of the movie theater trips and bike trips is to provide additional features outside of social links, but again, unless it helps with raising my bond with my party members, I see very little reason to use these features, as it's literally impossible to max out every social link in the game while going for all 5 bike ride trips with every party member and seeing a movie once every month with every party member. Obviously, it's up to the player's play style, but for me, these are features that either need to be removed, improved, or changed entirely for the remake. Balance shuffle time. Personally, I'm completely fine with the shuffle time mechanic in Golden. I know it completely breaks the game too much, but in my opinion, I see it as a reward for the player engaging in battles to begin with. Though, if they were to change shuffle time entirely, I say they need to do something that's better than the original shuffle time, but not as overpowered or broken as Golden shuffle time. More particularly, there should not be a mechanic that allows you to upgrade a skill, as the Magician card in particular is way too overpowered, especially for physical skills. And increasing your Persona stats by 1 should be rare, or reworked to maybe make it a temporary stat increase for that one day you are in the TV world. I guess we'll see what Revival has to offer when it comes out. Fusion Forecast. One often forgotten mechanic is the Fusion Forecast, where if you fuse specific personas or a persona under a specific arcana, you can gain an extra skill, bonus EXP, or stat increases. I think this is a great feature to have, but it should be more aware to the player that it exists so players can take advantage of it more often. Like, maybe have Margaret stand outside of the Velvet Room, so when you go to talk to her, she can give you the Fusion Forecast without having to enter the Velvet Room to find out what it is. And maybe have the forecast for the next 5 days instead of just today and tomorrow. And maybe when she tells you the Fusion Forecast, it can be permanently written down on the pause menu's calendar so you don't have to talk to her again about it. Rewrite some lines of dialogue around Kanji and Naoto's truths. One of the biggest misconceptions of Persona 4 is that Kanji's main dilemma is him being gay and Naoto being transgender. However, this is far from true. Naoto is not a transgender character. I could see why some people thought she was. I mean, I'll admit I thought she was a trans man on my first playthrough as well. But no, she was actually pretending to be male to fit in a male-dominated workforce. Something that's more of a sexist problem in Japan than it is in English-speaking countries. I think the game makes her truth clear enough, but clearly not obvious enough for people who think it's an anti-transgender story when her arc has nothing to do with her being transgender. And when it comes to Kanji, sure, you could argue that he might have some feelings for the same sex, and honestly his main dilemma of being into feminine hobbies would be strong regardless if he was gay or straight. But the important thing to keep in mind is that the visual appearance of their shadows in the TV world is how people see them. The girls who mock Kanji for his hobbies see him as queer, not for the fact that he is queer, and his main dilemma is being able to embrace those hobbies but at the fear of being rejected for not being seen as masculine. While I am all for these characters being LGBT, that's not what their storyline is about, and to assume the game is being homophobic or transphobic about it only proves that you guys missed the point of their story arcs. I think a few revisions should be necessary to make the message clear, especially for English players who take these stories out of context to this day, but not too clear that it misses the point entirely. And hey, just because you want them to be LGBT does not mean the game is automatically bad, because they're not. That way of thinking is stupid and further proves you're the antithesis of Persona 4's entire message. People believe what they want to believe as truth without realizing what the truth is. And sadly, even if they do revisions, there's probably going to be a lot of people still that will have a different headcanon in mind. Make Teddie less pervy. Now, when it comes to Persona characters being a little perverted, I say the stuff with Teddie in particular does go way too overboard for my liking. Honestly, I think Teddie is fine as a character and is overhated like Marie is, but I definitely can't defend the scenes where he gets perverted over the girls. I mean, I have nothing against boys being all googly-eyed over their fellow female classmates. I mean, a boy crushing on a girl is completely normal, especially for teenagers. But I do believe if they want to make Teddie a more likable character to those who don't like him, they should definitely tone down his perverted attitude over women. If he wants to crush on girls, sure, but we don't want a whole campaign dealing with a pedo bear. Balance the party member's skill set. One flaw with Persona 4 is that while each party specializes in a certain build, Chie and Kanji for physical attacks, Teddie and Yukiko for strong magic and healing skills, Yosuke and Naoto for being a jack of trades kind of character, they do feel unbalanced to the point that anyone can tier list one party member better over the other. In Persona 3 and 5, I do think the parties are mostly balanced, but in Persona 4, Yosuke and Chie fall off late game, Kanji is a problem during most boss fights since they have a hidden physical resistance, and Yukiko is an absolute must-go character for raw magic damage and healing. Honestly, they need to balance the party out by either nerfing or enhancing some of the party members. Still stay true to what they were good at from the original game in Golden, but give us more of a reason to use the party members we favor less, or give us a reason to give OP party members a break every once in a while. This of course can be remedied by giving backup members a percentage of the EXP gained in battles, and it would make sense for them to earn some EXP since they are joining the entire party in the dungeon itself, unlike how backup members in Cease canonically stayed behind at the entrance. There's definitely room for improvement because every member of the investigation team should see their use. Easier Reapers spawn. I don't think I need to write an essay on this one, but I think the Reapers should show up the same way Tartarus and Mementos does it. Punish the player if they spend too long on the floor as opposed to opening a certain number of chests and hoping you open the right one to get the Reaper. Make them easier to spawn so it's less time consuming for completionists, but also punish it for those who overgrind on the same floor without moving on. Implement the Cut Yosuke romance. Out of all the changes requested, the supposedly cut lines of Yosuke being a romanceable social link is probably the most requested by fans. And while I am all for Persona finally having same-sex romance options, I think this is an addition that would be more cool to have than an absolute necessity. Honestly, the romance mechanic in pretty much all Persona games is the least interesting mechanic to me. I'm glad it's there as a feature for those who want to see platonic or romance routes for a particular social link, but it's not really something that enhances or breaks a Persona game for me. I'm more indifferent to it, but glad it's something that exists. Honestly, if they did an entire game where there was no romance option like how Metaphor ReFantasio had 0 romance options, I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine if the only romance options were hetero-romantic only. I'd be fine if you could romance either gender, or the same gender only. It's their game, they can add Yosuke as a romance option if they want to. If it's not included, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but not a huge loss. The other thing to bear in mind is that if they do add a same-sex romance option, there could be a chance that the game could be banned in some countries like Middle Eastern countries where it's illegal. And with those said countries and crybabies who always cry woke, there could be a financial loss if they go with this option. Plus, there is the fear of Atlas portraying same-sex relationships wrong, like having one male partner be more feminine so it's not considered too gay, or writing their gay characters as big gay Al stereotypes. But times change, and who knows, this might actually be a thing in Revival. And since both you and Yosuke have established characters that don't seem like big gay Al stereotypes, I think they can portray a pretty good gay romance. And heck, they definitely do have good intentions to portray same-sex romances, since honestly the Rin route is probably one of the best routes in Catherine Fullbody. Overall, the Yosuke romance option, or having same-sex romances in general, is not something that I think is absolutely needed, but an option that I'd all be for if it is included. And now, the number one thing I think Revival needs to improve upon. Reduce the temptation to use guides. One of the biggest issues I have with Persona 4 is that a good chunk of the game is a guide game if you want to complete as much as possible. Now sure, most people will look up class answers and exam answers on their phone, and some may look up the best responses for social links as it's kinda necessary if you want to max out all social links in Persona 3 and 4. However, it's not just the social links and classroom questions where you need a guide. Some of the quests given to you by NPCs kind of require a guide so you don't waste daytime slots completing them. While some of the Fox's quests are straightforward, there are some quests where, even on a third playthrough, I have to look up what I'm supposed to do to complete that quest. And then there's the issue of certain game mechanics being elusive. Like, I would have no idea I could unlock a new location if I rode my scooter 3 times around the neighborhood, unless I looked up if there was a point to ride in it. And on my first playthrough, I didn't even start the part-time job social links till it was already September, as I had no clue there were social links behind these 3 part-time jobs. I was balls deep in the game and was curious why I was lacking the Temperance, Devil, Death, and Tower social links, and that made me look it up out of curiosity. I think there needs to be a clear indication in the remake that you may find new social links behind these said jobs. Like, maybe put in a blue card right next to the part-time jobs when looking at the posters for part-time jobs so the player knows that there's a social link behind them. Sure, there's no way of the protagonist knowing that there's a social link for him behind these jobs, but it's definitely a quality of life improvement for the player that needs to exist. Another problem is researching what skills will unlock if you take that party member on a bike trip, as you have no idea what skills will come next, and if it's even worth it to keep doing this. Another problem is the request for fusing personas with a specific ability to complete Margaret's social link. I think they need to either rework her social link entirely, or make the process of this require players to be able to figure it out for themselves without needing to use a guide. Or make a skill card for these skills accessible at certain points of the game so the player doesn't have to constantly fuse a skill they don't want around. But I think the worst example would be the fetch quest, where you have to defeat enemies from a previous dungeon to get an item from them, with no indication of what enemy you need to defeat outside of a description of their appearances. And some of them require RNG, a random unrelated enemy to summon those enemies in for you, or you having to do these battles multiple times to get more than one of a particular item, as sometimes they won't even drop the item you need. These are way too time consuming, and I always hate doing them. I hate having to waste a sticky note per dungeon, writing down what floor I need to be on and what enemy I need to spawn in. Yes, they are optional and you can beat the game without these quests, but it's still more beneficial to go out of your way to complete them than to ignore them. Though honestly, if they were to improve this, I think it's better to just remove this entirely. Oh, and let's not forget having to look up how to max out the hunger social link just so you can max that out while accidentally discovering an extra dungeon for you still awaits. Now, this entire problem wouldn't be so bad if it didn't require to use my phone for pretty much 70% of the entire damn game. The only reason a player should look at their phones is to answer exam questions or to research if a method of passing time is worth it. This should not be a guide game. The mechanics and opportunities should be clear to the player, enough for them to figure it out, but not arbitrary that it requires a Google search a majority of the time. The classroom questions can be easily remedied thanks to the feature of seeing which response other players pick the most, which is an online exclusive mechanic added to Persona 5 and Persona 3 Reload. To me, this is probably Persona 4's biggest problem that needs to be fixed in Persona 4 Revival. Sometimes a Persona game requires a guide, but it should be less than 10% of the time. And with that, that's all the additions or changes I think Persona 4 Revival needs to be the best version of Persona 4 you can buy. There's probably other things I'm either forgetting about or don't feel it's that important to mention, but all I can hope for is for Persona 4 Revival to be a faithful and unique remake. While I'm still not a fan of this game being remade, I understand the business practice behind doing this, as a gaming company needs money in order to deliver what fans actually want. So, what do you think Persona 4 Revival needs? Or what do you know it has if you're clearly seeing this outdated video in the future? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this, and be sure to give a like, comment, and subscribe, and ding the bell for more It's a Gamer content. I'll see you all in the next video, where I should hopefully make a more timeless video than this one.